Let's do this. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another edition of the Farmer Cigar Garage Talks. How's everyone doing tonight? Doing pretty good. So we're back again for another Lenten edition. So the beverage tonight will be nothing but delicious water. We do have our cigar. This one is just fun, folks. The 2012 Oscar Valderes. And it's a barber pole, box pressed. It's got a Maduro leaf and then a green leaf. I forget the name of the green leaves are. I don't really smoke many of the green leaves. There used to be a lizard tail cigar, iguana cigar, way back when. It was kind of a bang fizzle cigar in my opinion. Not bad so far. I'm going to keep smoking this one and see what types of flavors develop. Very interesting. I usually don't like the green leaf, because that ends up tasting a little too much like alfalfa for me. But so far, this is actually really good. That green is really mellowing that Maduro quite a bit. I'm enjoying it. So, continuing on with our Lenten talks. As you can tell from the video, EMS versus religion. Now, it's, again, no secret I'm very religious. That's kind of what everyone should know. And I'm also deeply into EMS. And those two don't always go well together, believe it or not. I'm sure many of you who are in the field understand it. And it doesn't take much imaginatory power for the rest of you to kind of see, yeah, I can see why that wouldn't mesh well together. To kind of sum it all up, I was teaching some EMT students that time of year. It was near Lent, I think, so I was kind of talking about it, talking about some of the resolutions I was going to be doing. I was doing Exodus 90 at the time, and I wasn't at all secretive that I was very religious, and I like to work religion actually into my holistic patient care when treating the whole patient. But one of the guys was Army vet, or Navy vet, he was a corpsman. Worked in a overseas hospital as a tech. Super knowledgeable guy. Very, very good provider, super knowledgeable. Kept you on your toes, kept you guessing, you had to definitely know your stuff, because if you didn't, he'd call your ass out, and I respected him for that. Well, anyway, we're talking about this Exodus 90. I think we were into the second semester of the program, and he asked if he can come in and talk to me in private, or confidentially and whatnot. And I said, yeah, sure, I don't mind. And he said, when I first mentioned in the first weeks of class that I was religious, and that really comes in that affective care, he told me that he figured that I probably didn't see a lot, that I was a white cloud, as we call them, in EMS. I shared war stories throughout the class, and he's like, okay, well, I still think he's the white cloud. These are probably other people's stories. Then I had some of my partners and other providers who I'd worked with come and talk to the class and basically confirm, no, I saw a lot of shit, did a lot of shit, had crap-ass calls. Saw a lot of tragedy and death and destruction, and a lot of my own personal tragedy, death, and destruction. So he talked about that, and he said that he was still then shocked to find out that I could have gone through so much and still believe that there was a God, there was a higher power. And we then had a long conversation about God versus EMS. How can he asked me a few times, how can I be in an EMS and basically still believe? How can I see tragedy and death and destruction and suffering and stop and say, yes, there is a God and he cares about us. We had a long conversation. I'm not going to share that conversation verbatim because it was a private one between me and him. But to be honest, it is something that I have had to come to terms with. I've had a lot of questions. And most of them everyone has. Why do good things or bad things happen to good people? I remember going through my paramedic internship. We had a 12-year-old riding a dirt bike who fell and got ran over by a kid on a quad. Absolutely crushed his chest, crushed his heart. We worked on that kid for hours and hours and hours. We'd call it time of death, and then we'd find a heartbeat. Call it DOA. We'll try one more thing and it works. Lo and behold, that was the third child for this woman who died. And my mentor, even at the time, said, she's like, what did she do that God would punish her like this? What did she do in her life to deserve this? Or what did she do in a previous life to deserve this type of treatment, this type of punishment? So that's not an uncommon view in EMS. To look at it as this person must have done something bad, they must have deserved it. Or to just believe there is no God. Well, it took me a lot of time talking to priests and reading and praying on it to kind of come to my revelation as to how I can be an EMS and still have a strong faith that there is a God, and not only that, there's a God that cares about us and wants us to be happy and looks out for us. So first and foremost, I can say this beyond a shadow of a doubt, that God doesn't punish us here on earth. We actually end up having to deal with man's free will, whether it be ourselves or whether it be someone else's free will exerted on us. Some good examples. I had a patient who massive cardiac problems and diabetes. And the patient cursed God, said, I can't believe he'd do this to me, trouble me so. Well, the guy chose a very unhealthy lifestyle, very sedimentary lifestyle, high fat, lots of alcohol. Your condition is a result of what your choices, what you chose to do. You didn't choose to, follow a healthy diet. You didn't choose to exercise, but yet you're quick to blame God for punishing you, or if there is a God, he wouldn't let you suffer like this on earth. When it's, again, your free will that got you there. Now, what do you say? Well, wait a minute. What about the child who's born with developmental delays or some sort of debilitating health condition? He didn't choose that. Fair enough. Fair. But that comes into others' choices, others' free will. Did the parents maybe get exposed to something? PFAS, we're learning a lot about now. PFAS, lead, a lot of these chemicals, formaldehyde that we thought were safe and stable chemicals, turns out they cause, these can cause a lot of these conditions. Problems with miscarriages, problems with birth defects. So, again, I don't think God did that on purpose, but he gives us free will. He allows us to make these choices. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, so you believe that we're in on our own, right? That although there is a God, he could care less about us. No, I don't believe that. I have seen enough miraculous stuff in my career, stuff I can't explain, coincidences that are just too perfect to be random chance. Now, I don't think God just, I think every miracle he performs, there's a reason behind it. There's a greater purpose that we're not going to understand. But at the same token, for there being that greater purpose, I do firmly and wholeheartedly believe that God will not balance the scales here on earth, but will balance the scales after we die. If someone here on earth had a life of suffering, of challenges, of poor health, infirmity, and if they were a good person and followed God, and they were at the mercy of other people's choices, I firmly believe that that will help them in the afterlife. That'll help them to get to heaven, to get to a greater sense of peace, the suffering they've done on earth. My uncle, who's a priest, had a quote. He'd always say, "It's better to suffer on earth around friends and family and support and love than to suffer in purgatory alone." That's one of the revelations that I heard that just made a lot of sense. I talk to my kids about this. The greatest goal, the greatest reward we'll ever get is not here on earth. It's in the afterlife. It's in heaven. So if you suffer here on earth, you have trials and tribulations, you struggle, that means something, that counts for something. Again, if you do it with grace and you accept what happens and send it up to God and get grace for it and still try to strive to be a good person, that helps you get to heaven. Now again, I don't think God makes people suffer just so they can get to heaven. But again, I think the scales get balanced after we've left. I dread to think these people who believe in karma. Could you imagine a world that actually existed with the rules of karma? If everything balanced out here on earth, every action you've ever taken, that'd be a scary place to live in. Almost terrifying, actually, to me. I mean, what? You cut someone off in traffic and causes you to stub your toe? You swear in anger and you break your arm? Like, oh, that would be scary. Not a world I want to live in. Right? This one makes sense, and with God in it, it makes sense. And the scales will be balanced after we've died a natural death. We go up to heaven and we get judged. I like to tell my kids that suffering serves a purpose. It has its own rewards. Human life is suffering. I should say it's a key component. We're not supposed to say human life is suffering, but suffering plays a key component, a key role. And no, it's not fair. No, you don't have to like it. But when you look at the suffering, it's not God causing it. God actually probably is helping to prevent some of it and give comfort. One of the greatest connections I ever had, I might talk later in a video, was when I was at one of my lowest points. My wife, I thought, was going to die. I was then alone in a waiting room to hear if she made it through surgery. Completely alone. And all I had was God and prayer. And at that moment, when I started praying, I didn't feel alone anymore. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't know if she was going to live, but I knew everything was going to be all right. And that's an interesting feeling, interesting revelation. And I didn't know if she'd live, but I knew everything would be all right. If she didn't, she'd be taken care of, and God would watch over us. This video is getting a little bit on the long side. Oh, not bad, actually. So one quick story. This is actually what I like to give as a wedding blessing. You talk about not understanding God's will. The wedding blessing is I hope the married couple, their cow dies and their house is filled with holes. And usually it gets a bit of a gasp from the mother of the bride. So I quickly clarify, what does that mean? And it comes from an old proverb, an old story, that an angel, after spending millennia observing God and what God does, says, God, I'm ready to ascend to the next level of being an angel, be an archangel, and be your right-hand man, because I understand everything you do. And I get it. And God laughs, as God does when people say stuff like this. And angels are no different. He says, you think you have? He said, okay, I want you to carry out 2 tasks for me. And if you can understand why I did that, I will gladly make you an archangel and put you in some of my honored advisors, guard, whatever you want to call them. All right? The angel's ready. Give me the task. He said, you know the poor family down there? Husband, wife, 2 children. Yes, I see them. They're firm believers, and they love you dearly and pray to you every night, and they give alms, and they give to their community and shelter the homeless and feed the hungry and follow your commandments to a T. That's the one, God says. I want you to go kill their cow. The angel's aback. Well, you said there was another task? Yes. You see that rich man there? Oh, yes, the greedy rich man who has no love in his heart and never helps out anyone, has stolen and treated people unfairly. That's the one, God says. I want you to go down and you'll find a bunch of holes in his basement. Patch them all up. Make sure it's a perfect patch job. One that he would have spent thousands and thousands of gold pieces on, but you're going to do it for free. The angel's just aghast. Part of him wants to protest. But he figures maybe if he does these tasks, he'll have a revelation because he doesn't understand what's going on. So he goes and he kills the cow, patches the basement of the rich man. He can sense the rich man being extremely happy that he was able to save thousands of gold pieces. The angel hears the wailing and crying of the poor family because their source of food, their source of income, died and is no longer usable. So the angel goes back up to God and says, God, why did you have me do these things? He says, you truly don't understand my ways. So the angel sat back and asked God to explain. He said, that house, the poor house, death was coming to that house. Would you have me kill the father? And then the mother and children will starve slowly to death and end up having to do unspeakable things to even try to get a morsel of bread? Or maybe you'd have me kill the mother so that the husband would be distraught with uncontrollable depression, and he'd let his family go by the wayside and let himself die slowly. Or maybe I should have killed the children, causing the mother and father to be in a deep, deep sense of despair. Yes, they will be hungry for a little bit. Yes, they will have hardship, but they'll have each other and they'll have love. And they will get through this more so than they've gotten through anyone else dying. Angel stepped back and was just aghast. That makes complete sense. But what of the rich man? He said the rich man, had he had his contractors come to repair those holes, would have found more wealth, would have found gold and jewel deposits that are in the basement. He would have squandered all of it, kept it to himself. But now that you patch those holes, he's about to hit some hard times. He's going to lose his fortune. And he's going to realize that these material things mean nothing. He'll even be brought in by those he would have thought to be commoners. But their love that they'll show to him, and they're willing to give him what they barely even have themselves, will turn his heart. He'll rebuild his fortune, but this time, he'll build it to make the world a better place and share with his neighbors and share with those less fortunate than him. And he'll come closer to me and accept me into his heart. And he'll actually obtain heaven. And of course, the angel steps back and realizes he doesn't understand. And goes back to just being a lowly angel observing everything that's going on. So then the White Toast ends. Again, I wish the newly married couple that their cows die first and that they have holes in their house. It's a beautiful story kind of explaining we don't understand, nor should we, nor will we. But things will be balanced out. God will again. After we've left this earth, the scales will be balanced. So that's how I can have religion and be an EMS. I might not agree with the method, but I can't argue with the end results. I might not like what other humans do to other humans in this world, but I know that they'll be taken care of. And I know that in my loneliest, darkest moments on the rig, I'll always have God on my side. And that's what I have with faith. And that's what I have with religion and belief. And trust me, if you ever worked on the rig, the last thing you ever want to be is alone. It's a scary, scary thing to be alone and be in the back of an ambulance or a rig with a patient who's dying and looking towards you to make everything better. I don't think I could be a paramedic without a strong, strong faith and a strong belief in religion. Food for thought. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this cigar. It's very interesting. Oh, that was a big ash I was going for there. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my cigar. And hope everyone's staying safe out there, that you're having a good one. And we'll see you on the next one.